Huh? It's gonna be us here plus Izzy.
Good morning, and welcome to the First Universal, I'm sorry, I get this wrong, First Unitarian Universal Church in New Bedford. I'm Eileen Sorrentino. I'm tripping over my words because I don't do this every week. And I'm a member of the Social Justice Committee. We are a beloved community of people who believe that everyone is worthy of respect, science is real, the democratic process is a sacred thing, that we are all part of an interconnected web, and that the light and energy we share and put out makes a difference in the world. We are people of purpose, and if what you hear today resonates with you, we hope that you will consider becoming part of the Way Cool family of seekers and keepers of this long dream that is our church. In your pews, if you're new, there are blue cards, and if you're interested in getting more information about the church or having the minister call you, just sign it and put it in the collection basket. Afterward, we're having a teach-in during our coffee hour, and hope everybody will stay for that. We're live streaming, so when you speak into the microphone, please make sure that you speak fairly close to it and very clearly. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, please put your phones in worship mode. We have a very special service today. The Social Justice Committee has been meeting, attending events, and becoming outraged as we learn more about the injustice and oppression suffered by the Black and other marginalized people in our community. Now we want to share with you what has given rise to our outrage. Today's service will be a teach-in, which will begin following the offertory and continue in the parish hall after the service for no more than a half hour. This is your opportunity to expand your awareness, share your voice and your thoughts, share in our outrage, and commit to social justice in our society. And Brody, where are you? Where is he? Okay. We'll light our chalice to begin our service. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. The opening words are from Ibram X. Kendi. Our world is suffering from metastatic cancer, stage 4. Racism has spread to nearly every part of the body politic, but every single person actually has the power to protest racist and anti-racist policies, to advance them, or in some small way, to stall them. And the opening hymn is number 205, Amazing Grace.
And grace will lead shining as the sun. We've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
So while you're standing, this is time to greet one another. And while you're still standing, please join me in a unison reading of the covenant, which is in your order of service. We come together as a religious community, upholding freedom of conscience, right relationship, and the inherent worth of all people. We value our diversity and pledge to care for one another in the spirit of compassion, to speak and listen to each other with respect, and to promote justice and kindness in the world. So now is the time in our service when we invite you to come and share your joys and concerns. By lighting a candle, and you tell us briefly, please, just a few sentences, what is on your mind, what do you have to be joyful for, or what are you concerned about?
So for here, I know that Valentine's Day is coming really close, and I know I gushed all about Izzy and I, our one-year anniversary, just the other week, but it really has been an adventure. I'm just really thankful that you've been with me, and especially with all like the things that we do together, even just social justice, but even everything beyond that. I'm just always super thankful for you.
Hi, I have decided to embrace polyamory because serial monogamy has burned me more times than I care to remember. And so I found out by using the Facebook dating algorithm, I was able to train it to go find doctors by holding the ethics and standards really high and setting them as strong. So I've been having fun with that, and yes, my current partner is on board with this. I have friends who have done this lifestyle. It's common among the neurodiverse, and honestly, I'm happier with it than being monogamous.
And I've lighted 2 last candles. The first is for those of you who have, and anyone who has not shared their joys and concerns. And the second is for the people who have yet to find a safe and welcoming community. Let us enter now into the spirit of prayer and meditation. This is from Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. And please observe 30 seconds of silence after the prayer. Now is the time in our service when we ask for your generous contributions to support the many good works of this church. Very nice, thank you, Randy. Today, the Social Justice Committee is holding a teach-in. The first part starts here in our service, and the second part will be in the parish hall after the service. We hope you will attend and let us hear your voices so that we can find ways to move forward together in seeking justice for all marginalized people in our community: Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBTQ, disabled, mentally ill, and others. We have 3 speakers, and they will each speak in turn, and then we will close the service. I think it's going to be a little shorter than usual so that we have more time downstairs. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Tony Ann Wong.
Hello, everybody. Hi. During my experience learning about social justice, one phenomenon that constantly rotates into my attention is, how is it that we can begin so readily to point fingers at each other the minute things go off track? This human behavior prevails throughout our social psychology, yet very few truly understand it. This quirk of the mind leaves us vulnerable to be exploited. The primary tool used by capitalists, white supremacists, and the like is the ability to turn different subgroups of the oppressed against each other in order to prevent the marginalized from uniting towards the greater good. Today, we're having a conversation about infighting, both on a large and small scale, and what we can do to combat it. So let's dive in and discuss just how good we are at turning against each other. United we stand, divided we fall. This old adage proves just as tried and true in our 21st century as it had done when our country was founded. Ironic, then, that the founding fathers who wrote our laws under this idea also set the precedent of hoarding wealth and power to the top at the cost of the many. They knew that the many held the real power if they'd only have banded together. Yet, when broken up and left to squabble amongst their fragments, the many would become nothing but a scattered pile of hungry souls desperate to scramble for the crumbs. As a culture, the elite bombarded us with a message that pulls no punches to drive divisive stakes deep into our country's psyche. Billionaires convince the middle class that it's the Hispanic immigrant who has a vendetta against the hard-working American by stealing our jobs. It's the single mom asking for food stamps who's sucking away your tax money. It's the critical race theory in our books and the drag queens who read to kids who corrupt our youth. Even my own Chinese family, on the topic of when Asians are denied admission into certain universities, resentfully remarks on how Black people have it so good now since colleges care more about affirmative action and quotas more than skills and ability. We're led to believe that it's our fellow neighbor who's causing us grief, rather than to remember that our neighbor is to be loved, supported, and celebrated. As much as that same media has done its best to bestow a frivolous connotation onto the term woke, at the end of the day, this word simply describes when one becomes aware of the injustices of the world. A huge factor that supports our current broken system is the perpetuated division of those who have been marginalized. It prevents them from fostering the amount of empathy and cooperation needed to realize the changes we need. Wokeness allows one to acknowledge this broken system and thus unite the victims of this system in order to repair it. The fight for social justice will always present challenges, But when we fall back into old narratives just so that we can point fingers and deflect our stressors, we become complicit to the very system we swore to overturn. Discrimination exists as a tool by the oppressors to prevent us from banding together because they're afraid of how powerful we truly become when we do. Whether it be white supremacy, the patriarchy, or ultra-wealthy, those at the top want you to turn against your siblings in suffering because manufactured division helps protect the position and assets of the elite. As you hear the rest of our testimonials today, ask yourselves how powerful we can be once we see through the tricks they employ to divide us. I hope that one day the question will not be, oh, how are we so good at turning against each other? But rather, since when did we get so good at using our differences to our advantage? The road to justice shall not be crossed just by one person nor one group alone. Please, come join us as we walk this road together. Thank you.
Our second speaker is Isaiah Kidney.
Good morning, church, and firstly, I just want to say thanks for coming today in this terrible weather. Good morning, church, and thank you for coming today. Thanks for coming out in this terrible weather. I know it was probably so hard to drive in your car nice and dry. Today we're talking about different types of social division in society, such as race, class, gender, or sexuality, and how they're used to attack other individuals arbitrarily for the benefit of a small minority. I have two stories to share with you today. One from when I was younger and I worked at FedEx, and the second story is from only a few months ago at the fish factory I currently work at. When I worked at FedEx, I was working on the line in a factory-like setting when I asked a fellow coworker if he could help me with something. He stared back at me blankly and replied simply, "I can't speak English." This bothered me greatly, but I said nothing until the end of my shift when I was driving home with my then girlfriend, to whom I told about the encounter. I said to her that he couldn't have filled out the proper paperwork without speaking English, and that people need to be able to speak English to come here. She told me that at the time what I had said was very racist and problematic, to which I responded with confusion and disbelief. At the time, I didn't realize I was just regurgitating propagandistic language I had heard from politicians and talking heads on the TV and on the radio. It was silly and wrong of me to say those things, but I had my head so buried in the sand, which is typical for men in my family, I didn't even have the tools to dispel the deeply ingrained nonsense in my mind. The next part of my story comes after a few years of self-examination and reflection where I had to unlearn a lot of that ingrained nonsense and build the tools to combat it in my mind. I had started working at a new factory, my current job in fact, where instead of a single person speaking Spanish, I found it to be myself being the only person speaking English. This time, however, I realized that instead of blaming someone else for the hurdles life hands us, I would need to challenge myself to accommodate others to overcome said hurdles. Language learning not being my strong suit, it was a slow uphill climb for me to even get to where I am today. Speaking in short conversations and work-related topics took me 2 years to learn. Even with the small understanding I have, it has opened up a world of new people and new experiences that I didn't know existed before. To think that my short-sightedness before had closed my eyes to the wonderful new friends whose churches I've attended and who I eat lunch with and discuss pro-labor ideas with. To think before I let racist ideas hold me back from this brave new world I could now engage with. To think that closing your mind also closes off entire worlds to you. Conclusively, I've found that building the critical thinking skills necessary to dispel the nonsense has been a fulfilling and profound experience. It opens up islets and oases I never knew existed, and I'm sure if the politicians and talking heads had their way, they'd have us segregated onto our separate sandbars. Thank you.
And I'll ask our third member of the Social Justice Committee, Mary Raposa, to come and say the third account of her own experiences.
Good morning. So perhaps you have had the experience where you're speaking with someone that you know well, and you make a comment that is taken the wrong way, in a way that you did not intend, causing both of you to become defensive and have hurt feelings. I can give you an example that happened to me not too long ago. I made a sausage pizza and it was cooling on the cutting board, and my partner reached over to grab one of the sausages off the pizza. And I tapped his hand and I said, "Hey, don't steal that sausage off the pizza," in what I thought was a fun, playful way. His reaction was not at all what I expected. He was clearly hurt, upset, and angry. And I asked what was wrong. He said, "As an African-American man, the word steal has a disturbing connotation that's very upsetting to me. If this incident had happened a couple of years ago, I would have gotten defensive. I would have explained that that was not my intention. I never intended to hurt his feelings. But since doing this anti-racist work, what I know is that that was a microaggression. A microaggression is something that hurts someone. It's often caused by a trigger that we, as white folks, have no cultural connection to. Because of the anti-racist work we've been doing, rather than getting defensive, I said, "I'm sorry, I will be careful not to use that word lightly in the future." Microaggressions are everyday slights and insults that minoritized people endure and that most people of the dominant group don't notice or take seriously. A common microaggression often mentioned by black folks is white folks thinking it's okay to just walk up and touch their hair. Microaggressions build up over time and cause ongoing hurt and discomfort. The incident that I just described with the pizza, in the past, I would have tried to explain that it was not my intention to hurt anybody or to make him upset, but microaggressions do hurt people, and we have to take ownership of that and do our best to diminish the incidence of microaggression. We will continue to make mistakes because these triggers lots of them are invisible to us. We will need to promise ourselves, though, and others, that we will own the pain we cause and do better in the future. We must notice and stop enacting microaggressions.
Thank you, Tony, Isaiah, and Mary. The closing words today are by Paul Robeson. Sorrow will one day turn to joy. All that breaks the heart and oppresses the soul will one day give place to peace and understanding, and everyone will be free. The closing hymn is number 212, We Are Dancing Sarah's Circle.
Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Here we seek and find our history. Sisters, brothers, all. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. We will all do our own naming. Sisters, brothers, all. Every round a generation, every round a generation, every round a generation, sisters, brothers, all. On and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, on and on the circles moving, sisters, brothers, all.
And please join us in the parish hall for coffee and the social justice teach-in, which will be facilitated by Tony Ann Wong. And usually people stay for the preludes, postlude rather, and so I invite you to do that.